Hi everybody. So it's nice to have you all here, and thanks for coming. So welcome to Drupal Camp Alpe-Adria. Thanks. So this is a two-day event that was organized by the guys you see in the orange t-shirts. So big applause for all the guys. Because without them, without us, it wouldn't happen, just that. So we also have to thanks to all of our sponsors. The silver sponsors are OWS, Enki, Adacta, Clica, Acquia, Montana Soft, and Wunderkraut. And the bronze sponsors are CGS, Artnetic, that did all the beautiful design for this camp, and Delo. This event wouldn't be possible without Faculty of Computer Science. Thanks to Jan Vesel for this. Sorry, the slide I just got this slide today, so it's a bit awful. I have to say some words about the Faculty of Computer Science here. They have a doctoral study, and it's in English. It starts in October. So for all the info, you can visit their Facebook page, and all the info is also available at the lobby and at the posters. So you're welcome to study here. So the important info, Wi-Fi, I guess you already figured it out. So the SSID is Drupal CAA 2.4G. The Wi-Fi is the Wi-Fi made the Inbox company made Wi-Fi available for us. So we have to thank the Inbox and hope it will work for you, because I'm pretty sure you have at least 2 devices connected to the wireless. So I hope it's going to be great. And if there are any questions about the Wi-Fi or anything, just find a person with an orange t-shirt and just ask them. They're always in the lobby. So sessions, yeah. We got a lot of proposed sessions for this event, and we decided to put three tracks on Saturday. So there's P1, this is this classroom, the P2 is there, and the P3 is just over there. So you can choose from 3 different sessions in each hour. And all the sessions are recorded, so you can watch it again, and if you can watch all the sessions that you didn't visit. So that's great, and we have to thanks for this to the team of Via Studio that's recording with 4 cameras. So it's great. And lunch, I think you already got the coupons for lunch if you bought the ticket. I guess the students have the free ticket, so they're available to buy the lunch at 1 p.m. So yeah, as you already noticed, out in the lobby is coffee. There's catering, so there is coffee and snacks available through all the day, and also tomorrow on Sunday it's going to be snacks and coffee all the day. So we end up earlier. That's why we don't have lunch tomorrow, and so we're sponsoring the lunch only for the Saturday. So maybe next time when we get more sponsors, we will sponsor to the lunch on Sunday. So Twitter, that's an important thing. You already noticed the Twitter wall in the lobby. Please do follow DC Alpe-Adria Twitter, because we will put all the news there. And every time you tweet about this event, use the hash DC Alpe-Adria. And there's also some prizes involved in this. So the most retweeted tweet gets the prize, and that will be on the closing session tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. So yeah, do follow DC Alpe-Adria, because I think we have only 70 followers, and I guess there are more than 150 people here. So do follow it, and please tweet about it so everybody knows about this event. So this is the official, oh, it's a wrong slide, sorry. Sorry? DC Alpe-Adria. Yeah, it's not going to look like this. Be sure about it. So the official party is in Bunker Beer Concept. It's a great bar for beer lovers and everyone else. It's on Dunajska Cesta 18 in Ljubljana. That's about 45 minutes of walk away from here. You can just take a bus or something. Be there at 9 p.m. today, and it's going to be great. Beer is sponsored. I think first 100 beers are sponsored, so it's going to be free, and be there, Don't miss it. It's not going to be like this. So have a nice weekend. Thank you all for coming again. Enjoy the camp, and do tweet about the DC Alpe-Adria. So thanks again, and enjoy. That's right. So now Jeffrey McGuire will have a session about, I don't know, how's the title? What's the title?
We can work on that as we go. It's basically the business value inherent in open source software.
Oh, it's going to be great. So thank you, and great welcome from Jam, who came here.
So, I want to talk with you about something that's very, very close to my heart, as well as being close to what we do as Drupalists, and that is what open source gives us. Is there anyone here today who's considering adopting Drupal, who's considering using open source for their own business, for their company? Okay. Is there anyone here who builds websites for clients with Drupal? And is there anybody who works on Drupal inside of a larger organization, not, so inside a company, inside a... Okay. So, for those of you considering adopting Drupal, this is... you need to sort of take a lot of what I'm saying at a slightly different angle. I want to talk with the Drupal business people here about how to explain what it is that we do to a prospective client, to someone who's considering adopting it for their own business, for their own, realizing their own vision, and how much there is in what we do beyond the fact that you can download the software for free. So I'd like to prepare you, Drupal business people, to have these conversations with other people. But a few things have happened in the last week that have gotten me very excited, and I wanted to talk about that briefly first. Why is this important? Why is it important that we have free and open source software? It allows us to make a difference in the world, and so the first point is, oh, I'm still not showing you this. Haha, okay. So I met a guy just a few days ago, and his name is Vincenzo Rubano. He lives in Lecce, which is very, very far south in Italy. Oh dear. And this is going to be exciting. Well, Vincenzo Rubano lives very, very far in the south in Italy in a place called Lecce, and he is 19 years old and finishing high school. And this website, Ti Tengo d'Occhio, that means I've got my eye on you. So Vincenzo's blind, and he's been blind since birth. And he decided that, well, he wanted to be part of the modern world, okay? He wanted to be online, like all of us are, and discovered that an awful lot of websites, an awful lot of applications are simply not accessible to him, and he's not happy about that. So he found a CMS, which happens to be Drupal, and he made a website, and he's doing two things. He's got a blacklist of websites and applications that are not accessible, and he's got reports on them. He's compiling reports on them. But he's compiling the reports in a way that's also very accessible and not exclusively for a technical audience. And he's sharing them with the developers of those sites and applications. And the ones who are open to it, he's helping them make their websites, make their products accessible. And this is astonishing. And this is possible because of free and open source software, because he found us online, and it turns out that as a community, we've been doing very, very well at accessibility, and Drupal is very, very well structured for his screen readers. So this is, I mean, I can hardly think of a better reason, to start the day than something like this. Now, this is Vincenzo, and he would like to go to DrupalCon Portland, and for a number of reasons, he doesn't have a scholarship, and he doesn't have the money that he needs to get from the south of Italy over to Portland. And he started an Indiegogo project, very creatively called Allow Me to Attend DrupalCon Portland 2013. I've made a donation to his cause. I recorded a podcast with him yesterday. And I'll be releasing it on Monday in the Acquia podcast as an appeal to help this guy out. I really think he should be in Portland. And if any of you can afford to donate anything at all, I would very much appreciate it if we can get this high school kid to Portland with us. Who here is going to Portland? Okay. He's been working very closely with the accessibility maintainer of Drupal, and he's working on Drupal 8, and I really think he deserves to go. So if you can help him out, I would greatly appreciate it. He would appreciate it a lot more. So one other point before I get started with my slides. I've been giving a talk similar to this for a while now in a lot of places, and I was starting to think that maybe I need to retire it, maybe I need to come up with, I'm working on some new things anyway, but actually, I've decided that this talk that I'm doing is still really important, because even now, even with the success of Drupal, even with the situation as it is, which is pretty positive for us in open source software land, there are people like Michael Assad. He's very, 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 very vocal online. He's really present on LinkedIn. And he'll go on and on and on and on. Every week or two, he'll start these massive discussions that get a lot of traction online saying, it's really not important whether your CMS is proprietary or open source. It just matters what features it has. It just matters that, Agility, which is his company's proprietary CMS, it does all this stuff. So, you don't have to worry about that open source crap because, it's all the same. It's not all the same. And I'd like to tell you today why it's not all the same. So there are still people out there who are fighting this fight between open source and proprietary, which we keep thinking is perfectly obvious, okay? But I don't think it's perfectly obvious. The fact that Drupal is free and open source per se is not the most important argument that you're going to have to use on people, but the good stuff is a consequence of us being open source. I just pulled up this graph this morning. This is the Google Trends between Drupal and Agility CMS, and you can see the moment when Michael got scared. Agility is the red line. And you can see about the beginning of last year, he started getting noisy. And considering that it's a fairly small project, he's very, very good at publicity. But anyway, I don't want to talk about Michael, and I have no personal problem with him, of course. He's just my whipping boy today. So, now, I have some slides. Dries does some slides and has some things that are similar to what I want to talk about today. This is a slide of Dries. I have a couple of Dries' slides in this, and Dries talks about the synergy that we get because we're open source, we can collaborate. This collaboration creates a feeling of community, which leads to innovation. And he's not wrong. I'd like to talk about the real value of open source. And I'd like to cover, apart from the things that I already talked about, what do businesses need? What are IT buyers, what are business managers looking for? How far open source has come in the last 10 years? Whether or not open source can be the basis for successful business. Talk about what's up with Drupal a little bit, and then specifically show you some business values in each of the 4 freedoms that define free and open source software. So, when I talk about business now, a business is, you can sell widgets, you can sell services, you can be a university, you can be a charity, you can be someone who wants to realize a vision. Your business is what you want to get done, what you want to realize. So, business today needs to remain innovative. Gosh, those are so high. It's amazing. So businesses today need to remain innovative. Everyone always needs to save money at this point. There's never going to be, I think, as well as things, if things, we've come out of this recession more or less in the last few years, which was, by the way, a huge tipping point for us in open source. The period through 2007 until now woke up a lot of people to the importance of the bottom line, and since we have a zero price tag, that really helped us. But I don't think it's ever going to be, I don't think anyone's ever going to be throwing money out of the windows anytime soon. So innovation, cost savings, and risk mitigation. If you're a smart businessman, obviously you need to innovate. So open source, as a concept, started, depends on how you count it, 10 or 15 years ago. A guy called Jim Allchin from Microsoft said this in 2001. I can't imagine something that could be worse than this for the software business. How many people in this room pay your rent with free and open source software? Okay. Now, the executive director of the Linux Foundation said this in 2011, and this is one of 2 important trends that are actually going on in the open source world that I'd like to talk about. It's really cute and funny and still pretty easy to talk about Microsoft in these terms. I was at Microsoft headquarters last year in Vienna, and I've spoken with a bunch of Microsoft people at different events around the world, and Microsoft's actually changing. They've open sourced a lot of their framework stuff. Azure, their cloud platform, will now run Drupal PHP applications, Node, all sorts of open source stuff. So they really, and they've got a new generation of managers who grew up in a world full of open source software, and they don't, these younger people they don't know a world without these concepts. And so Microsoft's actually changing culturally, and we as Drupal business people, we can benefit from this because Drupal runs on Microsoft infrastructure, and you're going to run into companies who run everything on Microsoft. They run IIS servers, they run .NET, they run all of that stuff, and yet you can guarantee them that Drupal will work on Microsoft infrastructure, so your possible field of business has greatly expanded because Microsoft has seen how well we're doing, and they are, a little scared, and they wanted to make sure that they have a piece of this pie. So Microsoft isn't really the bad guy for us because they're giving us a lot of opportunities. I also find it interesting that open source as a concept is kind of popping its head up now in the world outside of the software business. There's a really, really interesting book called One Way Forward, The Outsider's Guide to Fixing the Republic. Larry Lessig, who's familiar with Lawrence Lessig, he invented Creative Commons. He's been a real copyright advocate. He's left all of that behind, and he's very concerned about politics now, and he's very concerned about corruption in politics, and not the corruption like, you know, here, but the fact that there's too much money in politics. And he's got some ideas of how to fix that. I wish him well. I'm not sure that it'll ever happen. But he wrote this book about his ideas, and in the introduction, what caught my eye was he was talking with people from the Occupy Wall Street movement a couple of years ago, and he was talking with people from the Tea Party movement, and you can't get much further apart in American politics. And yet, both of these groups said, oh, we're open source political movements. You know, we're organized from the bottom up. And I think that's pretty fascinating. And I think it's because projects like the Drupal project are incredibly successful, and people are trying to figure out how we've gotten where we are now, and using us as a model for success. You know, Drupal's a social experiment, and we've figured out how to be a massively cooperative, distributed society. We've got models for conflict resolution and models for discussion, and you know, it seems to be working. Can open source businesses succeed? Who knows that logo? Who knows this number? February 29, 2012, fiscal year ended for Red Hat, and they had done $1 billion of business. So, yeah. And this is a completely technology-based business, completely open source-based. So all of us geeks can make, build, succeed at great businesses. Keep it in mind when you're thinking about what you want to do. Our stuff works. This is an ad, but this company, I started with, there were 18 of us. When I started, there's now more than 330. We're expanding into Europe, and everything we do is open source, you know, and done, I can say, done the right way, giving back to the project, and so on. So open source is kind of a good place to do business. So what about the technology of Drupal? This guy, Jim Whitehurst, he's the Red Hat CEO. He said this thing in 2011 that really caught my attention, because it seemed to me that what he was saying about Linux was very much true for Drupal as well. So when I read this to myself, I swapped out the word Drupal for the word Linux. So when I say Linux now, say Drupal to yourself. Linux, Drupal. Linux is a transformational technology. The technology of Linux empowers advancements and innovations that have nothing to do with the technology of Linux. That is to say, Linux supports the development of new business models as well as new technologies. Okay? So Drupal is your tool set to realize whatever your vision is, to get wherever you want to go with digital. I'm not very comfortable with the term. The thing that's coming now, though, people are talking about digital experiences a lot. So in any case, Drupal will let you realize whatever it is that you want to do. It's not going to get in your way. It's going to help you get there. That's my feeling about the project. Is Drupal a good bet? It passes the truck test, I would say. Who knows what the truck test is? Right. If your lead developer, God forbid, gets run over tomorrow, you're going to be able to find someone else who knows how to run Drupal. If you have a vendor relationship that goes bad, you can hand off the project. You can make sure, if something goes wrong when you're providing services and, you know, things go wrong, you can still, when you're pitching, way before that, when you're pitching, to a client about Drupal, you can say there are thousands of Drupal shops in the world. There are thousands of Drupal shops in Europe. There are tens of thousands of people who can run this stuff for you that I want to implement for you. It's a good bet. Drupal's one of the largest open source projects in the world. This guy called Henrik Ingo wrote a really interesting blog post. He was talking about governance models in open source and how to, and what you should do to have a big project and a successful project. But he put Drupal in the same category as all of these projects, and it's the only CMS up here. And half of this list is basically Linux in any case. And it's a very interesting blog post. But Drupal is certainly, depending on how you slice it and dice it, the most active, the most contributors maybe. It doesn't have the most websites online, but it's got, if you start going through the Alexa 100,000, 10,000, the percentage of Drupal is kind of amazing. The higher you go, the more Drupal there is. And it's certainly less installs than WordPress or Apache, but for what we're the best at, we're doing really well. This is another slide of Dries's about the state of Drupal. It's a little bit out of date, but it's kind of cute. I think that you could argue about how many developers are active. You could argue about exactly how many modules and by version and whatever. But Drupal is big and successful. Drupal powers a lot of media sites. Drupal powers a lot of government sites. Drupal powers a lot of education sites. Stanford is a fantastic example, actually. I'm friends with a guy who runs Stanford Web Services. That's an in-house, internal Drupal shop within Stanford University. And they have a system now set up. Anyone at the university who needs a website fills in a form online, clicks a button, and they get a site automatically provisioned with the university's official theme, with a standardized back-end editors in place, and they can run with it, and they'll be supported by the university. It's fabulous. And Stanford is slowly but surely centering on Drupal in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of great stuff going on. Drupal's really popular with developer communities, opensource.com, which is actually a Red Hat property, that runs on Drupal. The Ubuntu site, twitterdevelopers.com, x.com, which is the eBay developer community, that's on Drupal. Who knew that there is a open source software developer community for military applications? And do you know what it's called? Forge.mil is open source defense technology developers. It runs on Drupal. It's amazing stuff. I mean, it's crazy that exists. What a world we live in. Drupal has deep roots in activism and politics. Right from the very beginning, right from 2004, Howard Dean's campaign, the internet candidate for president in the United States, was running on Drupal. And it goes all the way up to the biggest of big business. New York Stock Exchange runs on Drupal, and an awful lot of other companies. So this is all, so you can help convince someone that Drupal itself is a safe bet. I mentioned this before. Businesses need these things, in my opinion, and Drupal and open source deliver them. Now, when we're talking about selling our services as open source software providers, it's vital that we demonstrate that what we're offering has the elements that IT buyers are used to seeing, in the last 20 or 30 years from the big houses, from the proprietary systems. It's vital that we demonstrate a complete and diverse ecosystem. And you can say with Drupal that there is commercial support. That's what Acquia was created to do, to close that last gap. It was the last thing missing from our ecosystem. And it made it possible for very large organizations to bet on Drupal. Drupal has commercial support. Drupal has multiple superb cloud hosting and other hosting options. Acquia, Pantheon, Commerce Guys have a hosting platform. There's a lot going on in that space. There's data migration, there's theming, there's design, there's security. It's a very rich It's a very rich ecosystem. So, who knows what the 4 freedoms are? And who's heard of Richard Stallman? Okay, so there's the free software definition. You can find it on Wikipedia. And I just want to go into this for 1 second because the free software definition is slightly different to how I've boiled down what I see as the 4 freedoms of open source software. There's a slight, philosophical schism between the free software movement and what has become the open source software movement. They're very, 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 very close together. Richard Stallman and the free software movement see free software as a solution to social problems and are very concerned that free software remains free and only interacts with other free software and then free hardware. And he's a real visionary, and I think it's great. He, as I understand it, looks down a bit on open source software because open source software is pragmatic about interoperability, about different degrees of openness in the licensing and so on. So open source, as we've talked about a little bit today in some of the sites you saw and with Vincenzo's site, Tengo d'Occhio, open source is doing good in the world and is helping people, and I consider it perfectly legitimate that I'm being helped by open source software in that my rent is paid. I think that's, that benefits my world. So I think that open source might be both. If somebody has a really deep philosophical problem with this, I'd be happy to talk about it later. I've thought about it a lot. Open source certainly allows you to control your own destiny. You can make of open source software what you will. Jeff Eaton, one of my favorite Drupalists from Lullabot, he says the 4 freedoms are your escape hatch out of any problem. And when I was trying to resolve the conflict in my mind between the free software vision and what we do, I think that I would say that the 4 freedoms are your license to make a difference. Okay? So, you're free to use open source software for anything, anywhere, and forever. You're free to study. You're free to understand what you're using. You're free to modify it, fix it, make it better. You're free to share it. Pass it on, sell it even, and pass things back. So let's look at each of these values, each of these freedoms, and the values that I see inherent in them. And we're talking now about values that I believe should be compelling arguments when, honestly, trying to win clients. So you're free to use open source software for anything, and it's kind of free, okay? And I want to be very careful about this. Free works. Free is, good. Certainly, in the context of the internet, free is doing okay. Okay? You're free to study, use, modify, share. You're free to have Apache and Firefox and PHP. I mean, these projects are great. But, so, when you're talking with prospective clients, okay, the bottom line counts. Nobody should be wasting money. It's all clear. Do not tell your prospective clients that this is free. Do not say that this is free software. Do not say that, if you can avoid it, don't even use the word free. There's a guy called Dan Ariely. He wrote a book called Predictably Irrational, and he wrote another one called The Upside of Irrationality, which is, they're very, very fascinating, and they talk about irrational behaviors and their basis in our psyches, and that these irrational behaviors are actually fairly predictable. So, if you call something free, and he has a chapter in the first book about this, and he writes it F-R-E-E, exclamation mark, all caps, bold, free. If you say this software is free to somebody, they're going to hear free, and you're going to set really, really bad expectations, okay, when you want them to pay your bill, right? Don't tell them it's free. And it's not free, but it gives them a lot of other benefits by having a zero price tag. Find out some way that you're comfortable explaining this concept, but please don't call it free. You're shooting yourself in the foot. And it's not free because, you know, we're talking about IT projects. IT projects all have costs, you know, personnel, hosting, bandwidth, design. And here's where we get also, so here's when I want to start answering Michael Assad and saying, hey, it doesn't matter if it's proprietary or, you know, open source, because as long as you've got the features that you need, that's cool, and I've got your back with my system, it's fine. But, you know, first of all, you don't have this licensing fee that you're going to have to pay every year. You're not going to have to pay $100,000 just to use the software, and another $30,000 just to have the developer tool license. You know, you've got that money that you can instead invest in your team. You can invest it in features that you want when you want them, okay? And by the way, Drupal's based on really standard, really well-known technologies. So you can invest that money in your own team. You can invest it in training. You can make your company a better place. Or you can hire someone to do exactly the amount of work that you need and pay them and then let go and keep running. So without a recurring licensing fee, you get an incredible efficiency bonus. There are thousands of Drupal shops, okay? With some proprietary systems, they're going to have regional agreements, or, you know, we have Germany, you have Slovenia. And if you have a problem with that vendor relationship, what are you going to do? You don't have an option. And with open source, you have a choice. Open source means you never have to ask for your data back. You can have it, you can export it, you can put it wherever you need, and you can find other people to help you if something goes wrong. We don't want to plan for something going wrong, but you can find a positive way to put that when you're talking with people. So, big proprietary software companies must build their solutions to help the 80% case. 80% of people need these features. And we can invest our time and our money to make this, because that's, you know, 80% of the potential customers, we've got them with that. They don't have time or money or interest in your special, freaky, amazing, creative, interesting new thing if maybe only you and another 5 people in the world want it, right? But you need that. This is the thing this is the next fill in the blank, right? You've had a great idea. Proprietary software companies are not interested in that. You can make Drupal do it for you. You can innovate. You can get someone to help you with it, okay? And you can get that done when you need it. Let's say that the next Twitter comes out, and the proprietary vendors recognize that actually the next Twitter, that's big enough so that it'll be good for the 80% case. They're going to have 3 to 6 months of meetings, going to prioritize it, going to get it on the engineering schedule, you know, behind the CEO's pet project and the vice president's other pet project, and you'll get Twitter integration next year. Okay? Pinterest hit 1 million unique visitors last, somebody can Google this, I don't remember exactly. Pinterest hit 1 million unique visitors last February, last March. A Drupal integration was there within a couple of weeks, and a month later, there were already 25 or 30 Drupal sites with full Pinterest integration, okay? Google came out with the @FontFace stuff. There was a Drupal module the next day. So, wow, we've got this incredible community of people all on the cutting edge, all doing different stuff. You've got a really great chance of getting stuff when it happens, okay? Because there's 900,000 of us who are all doing Drupal. I think there are about 900,000 users now on Drupal.org. I wonder if we should have a party when it hits 1 million. That would be cool. So here's why you don't talk about free, okay? But this is what you get. This is real value that you get from freely available zero price tag software. Jeff Robbins, another Lullabot, he likes to talk about Drupal is free as in puppies, okay? You get this thing, but you have to take care of it. In the United States, there's an old saying, my dad used to say it, we're not in the restaurant business, but he used to say this a lot. I don't know why, I should ask him. There's a saying in the restaurant business, and that is, you gotta own the bricks. You rent a place, you can cook great, you make good cocktails, things are going really fabulously, you get some good reviews, people start coming to your place, it's really popular, it's succeeding. Your rental contract comes up the next year. That landlord's like, I'm gonna get me a piece of that. And he says, you know, cool, I love your place. Now your rent is doubled though. And what are you gonna do? You've got a great location, you've got a great success, you can't afford to shut down or move. So all of a sudden, you know, basically, you've got to give him a cut. But what if you bought that building, right? What if you owned the bricks? Then it's all yours and the benefit is yours. So open source software, right? You're buying the bricks. That's yours. That's yours. And you're building value into it, into your vision, into what you need and what you're important. And you're not lining the pockets of anyone else just because they let you use their whatever it is. Okay? For the privilege of continuing to run your business, you know, pay another license fee and pay it next year and pay the year after that. You're out of that with open source software. Now, Drupal business people. The next thing that you really shouldn't do is sell cheaper, okay? If we all try and differentiate simply on price, then it's just a race to the bottom, okay? And, you know, I don't mean this in a mafia way. I don't mean this in a let's all, you know, have a conspiracy against the customers way. But you're good at stuff. Your company's good at design. Your company's good at whatever it is. You can sell what you're good at. Don't sell that we could do the same, but we'll, you know, for 20% less. It's suicidal as a business proposition. You will lose. What you need to do is you need to take these arguments and you need to show that you can sell something better for the same price as the competition is offering. So, somebody has a proprietary project, right? Let me think about this for a second. So, I'll get back to that in a second. So open source is also, you know, if you have this proprietary system that you're paying for every year, if it's not making enough money for Oracle or for Microsoft, they can just shut you down, okay? This is sort of getting back to the bricks for a second. They can just shut you down. You know, they decide that they don't have an 80% case anymore, it's become a niche thing. Well, they might tell you, you can migrate to our new, fancy, better version. Or they might just say, hey, it's sunsetted, we're not developing it anymore, you can run it, you know, and we're shutting the servers down at the end of the year. And you're stuck, okay? Proprietary companies can kill your business at any time, right? And open source cannot. It's yours, it can't be shut down, it can't trap you. So, you've got your project, you're pitching against a proprietary company, and you got to pitch better, okay? Don't pitch cheaper. They've got a budget of 100 money. Now, oh, this is an Acquia slide. Forgive me. It's a Drupal example. It just happens to be an Acquia slide. So, and with this budget of 100 money, you've got the choice between an open source solution and a proprietary solution. Implementation is going to cost 25 money, okay? And hosting and support, that's going to cost 15 money. This is related to that chart that we had before. And then your license fees, well, actually, they're going to cost you, they're going to cost you 0. Well, that's kind of cool. Now, what's all the important stuff? It's features and functionality and looking cool and running an ad campaign and I don't know. But you can do twice as much cool for the same money when you use an open source solution. This is a huge advantage. So if you sell it this way, you're not undercutting anybody, you're not racing to the bottom, but you're selling better, not cheaper. The second freedom is that you're free to study and understand what you're using. There are, no hidden surprises. Jeff Eaton says the bad dies or the bad gets fixed. Open quality and security are common outcomes of transparency. So open source is not automatically faster or more secure or higher quality. It is potentially so. Drupal is, in fact, a great bunch of code. But open source is automatically transparent. You can see what you're getting and you can make better decisions about it. So government agencies around the world are using Drupal and they're constantly hammering it. They're constantly assessing it. But you can check for yourself. You can look at the code. You don't have to trust anyone else's word on this. So you have the ability to make informed decisions about what it is that you're getting. This is from The Guardian, from the UK, and the important sentence here is, it is wrong to believe that open source software is implicitly insecure, according to the government's main official on the subject. Now, what I don't like about this article is because it then goes on to make a case for comparing proprietary and open source on the basis of cost alone. And so I wanted to show you this because this is about halfway right, and it's about halfway not enough because of all this other stuff that we're talking about today. Thank you, Phase 2, for loading me this slide. These are all American examples, but Drupals around the world. So Drupal is secure enough, right, for NASA and for the Energy Department in the United States and the White House, and, serious people like Al Jazeera, Warner Brothers, Sony, NBC Universal. I mean, these are mission critical, highly sensitive applications, and they're running Drupal. That's good enough for me. But you can check for yourself, or you can find someone whom you trust to look at the code and make better decisions. Forrester Research said something recently. They're talking about how the fact that, so Forrester is very, very, very influential in sort of larger business circles. It's an analyst company, if you haven't heard of it. One interviewee from a global pharmaceutical organization believed that his open source web content management solutions were more secure than proprietary ones. Many also feel that the open source open code base is a particular advantage as it allows organizations to explore potential security vulnerabilities. This is everything that I just said in an actual report that you can find and point to. The Department of Defense in the United States says, yep, it's secure. And it's being used. The United States House of Representatives runs it. The London government runs it. So, and I did a fun thing last year. Part of my job at Acquia, I make a lot of content, graphics, articles, podcasts. This is a creative content licensed graphic about the Drupal security process and how we can be open and secure at the same time. And it's Creative Commons licensed, and there's a high-resolution version on acquia.com that you can download and print out, and it's kind of cool. And I did it with the Drupal security team and Mug Design from Slovakia, and it's really, I don't know, it's a fun way. So if people have security concerns, because everybody can see your code. Are you crazy? That can't possibly be right. You can use this resource to help, that's funny, to help argue against that. So, you're free to modify open source software. You control your own destiny. You have the freedom to build what you need when you need it. If a proprietary solution is buggy, it might never be fixed. And if it only does 80% of what you want, when do you get the other 20%? Your priorities might not match the proprietary developer's roadmap, okay? It might never come. My clicks are going wrong. Oh, thank you. Okay, so another great book, Democratizing Innovation, and it's pretty old. It's not a recent book. This guy, I should actually write down when it was written, maybe 15 years ago, was writing about how basically he painted a vision of what open source has become. And he talks a lot about different industries that have been changed by the users. So there's a classical model here. Innovation was hard in this sort of manufacturer-user world. Manufacturers would make something and broadcast it, and then users would take it and use it. And it turns out that big manufacturers don't always really know what the end users really need. And so let's see. He says, users generally have a much more accurate and detailed model of their needs than manufacturers have. Innovation by users tends to be widely distributed rather than concentrated among just a few innovative users. So the crazy thing about open source, okay, is that now we're the manufacturers of the stuff we're using. And we're using it, and we can figure out how to do it better. And there's this, all of a sudden, this model, you know, we're doing it all at the same time. So you can use open source software to make the very best solution for your use case. The exact tools that you need are available to you. And of course, this drives crazy innovation. Drupal started as a bulletin board in Dries's dormitory in Antwerp, and it turned into, you know, political activism platform, and it does e-commerce, and it does hotel management, and does media, and it does, you know, mobile, and because we're all users and manufacturers now. So all of this innovation only really makes a difference when you can pass on these changes to other people. So you're free to reuse the best solutions that are out there. You can improve your efficiency by building on the shoulders of giants. When you turn on Drupal, when you download it, you've got millions of hours of coding at your side, ready to use already, okay? And if you start with that famous 80% case, you get a Drupal distribution that does 80% of what you need. You take Commerce Kickstarter 2, or you take something cool like Drupal Commons. You know, you can then find modules or do the development to make it do everything that you want, okay? And if you make the very best solution for, you know, running a government department, you can package it up and you can send it to every other department out there, and you're completely free to help as many people as you want, okay? Isaac Newton, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. So, you know, reuse the good stuff. Don't write it from scratch. This is our big advantage over open source frameworks, okay? With Drupal, this is the only time I don't want to take a dig at any other project really, but, you know, Drupal gives you all this stuff and you can carve it down to be exactly what you need. And with a framework, you know, you start and you sort of have to, you know, if you want a house, you have to build every doorknob, and then I don't want to write a user authentication system every time, and I don't want to write a menu system every time. So Drupal gives me all that, okay? If I fix a bug and I send in the patch, well, actually, I fixed it for all of you, right? And every bug that you fix, you know, I get that benefit too. You can talk, if you win the contract and then your clients are uncomfortable with the idea that their code, that you want to put their code into the community repository, okay? First of all, you could say, hey, you've got a bajillion hours of coding that's working for you already. These people have been working for you for years before you even knew they were working for you. And honestly, when I put this code in the repository, you've paid, that's 30,000 euros of code, and I'm putting it out there for anybody in the world to use, okay? You're not competing on IT infrastructure in most business. You want to sell widgets, okay? Let's make the best technology to sell widgets, and you can differentiate on what you're good at, And if somebody else finds this, okay, and they think it's a good idea, they're going to improve it for us. It's going to get better, it's going to get faster, it's going to get upgraded. You pay for it once, you get the upgrades for free. Okay, that's a huge leverage for a business person. Put it out there because the community is going to help you. They're not going to help you any more than how much you're willing to give back. So, you can build things more than once, you can pass it out, you can differentiate on service, you don't have to compete on tools, you don't have to compete on things like building features to match another system. So this ability to modify and pass on allows us all to cooperate. You know, Sony Music and Warner Brothers Music are both huge investors in Drupal. And they collaborate on modules and they work on the technology together, but they compete marketing music and music products. So I think there's one more point that I'm not sure if I've got a slide on it, so I'll just add it here. The other thing that open source is allowing us to do with this, you know, because we can distribute stuff, governments classically just have a couple of ways of changing the world, whether, you know, internally or externally. If I have 100 money and I want to improve conditions in my country, maybe I'll build a bridge connecting two parts of the country that have never been easily connected before. And so now commerce can occur, tourism can happen, goods can be exchanged, and my economy is going to do better. But I've spent that, and I have my bridge, and that's all I've got. I can spend my 100 money on vaccination programs in another country. If I think if another country is doing better, that it'll make my country do better, I can do that. I can spend my 100 money on bombing the crap out of that country. If I think that you know, destroying someone else's home makes my country better. I don't agree with this, but these are modes that governments use to effect change. Build infrastructure, apply foreign aid, fight wars. What about open source software? You know, the White House has this really interesting citizen participation project called We the People. The White House has a GitHub repository now of its own. How cool is that? And they've open sourced this petition module stuff for Drupal. So they're building government infrastructure, citizen participation, transparency. This is government infrastructure that can improve governance anywhere. And they spent 100 money, and it can be used once, it can be used 100 times, it can be used 1,000,000 times, it can be used in any country in the world. So all of a sudden, open source becomes this incredibly powerful tool to effect change in the world. This is my quote, actually, but open source allows you to make a difference. This is an unbelievable paradigm shift, okay? And we get that because of these 4 freedoms. Is that minutes or seconds? Minutes. So, back to Larry Lessig. I love this quote. Open source provides the fastest possible rate for the improvement of ideas. So, let's go to my 3 concepts that I think are important for successful business and tie this together. Open source lets you innovate, invest in your own team and your own vision, okay? And when you are the manufacturer and the user, you can be as innovative as you can be. You can turn any idea that comes to you that seems to be good, you can turn it into reality because you're free to change this stuff. You're allowed to reuse best practice solutions. You're allowed to take Drupal distributions that work for your branch and your sector and start with them and get huge efficiencies out of this. You don't have to pay recurring licensing fees, which means, once again, you can invest in your own team, you can invest in your own vision, you can sell or build or buy better instead of cheaper. You can plan a budget and definitely get more out of it than with a proprietary product that has license fees. You own the bricks. That means your success is yours and nobody can take it away from you. And you understand what you're getting into from the beginning. so you have the power to make less risky decisions. I talk with a lot of people about this over the last couple of years. These are some of them. Thank you, all of you people on the screen. And thank you for listening. I'm very, very happy to talk with anyone this weekend. I'll be here the whole weekend. You can find me online, mostly as Horn Cologne on a lot of services. jam@acquia.com is my email. And thanks.
Thanks for coming again.
Thanks for having me.